It's the Believe in Texans podcast brought to you by FanDuel. Cecil Shorts, you were there last night. I saw you conducting multiple games with the spectators. You did a magnificent job. And it was the only entertainment we had, really, until the end of the third quarter when the Texans finally breached the red zone. And then everything looked really, really good. So, what was from your vantage point watching on the sideline, what did you see out of the offense for that first 2.5 quarters and then on into when things really started clicking?
Very boring. Very
Yeah.
boring game. Defensively, that means you did a really good job. I thought they did a good job confusing Cam. Cam has all the arm talent in the world, by the way. Some of his throws, I'm like, golly. But they didn't look good. Tennessee just didn't look good. So when the offense finally got going, late third, early fourth, it was good to see the rookies. Love to see the rookie involvement from Woody Marks to Jaden Higgins to Noel it was just good to see them intentionally use those guys. So I thought that was huge. And then once things got rolling, it got rolling well. So it was fun to see that last fourth quarter.
There were a few things in the first half that I was happy about, and one of them was they started going up tempo, and it's not like they haven't gone up tempo at all, but there were a few drives where it wasn't like the whole series was up tempo, but they were spreading things out. They were still running out of their condensed formations, and some of the stuff they did in the first half ended up paying dividends in the second half. I thought a lot of the backfield misdirection. Like I get frustrated sometimes when they run Xavier Hutchinson on jet sweeps or things like that because it's not like he's that ultra explosive, scary, fast guy. But that really set up, I think, the Woody Marks touchdown play for one. The linebackers for the Titans were all glued on the play action. They got all jumbled up. And it freed Woody Marks out on the outside. Some of that was good, and I could going back and watching, it's a lot easier to see, oh, yeah, they were setting this up. They were setting that up. As they were doing it in the first half, it just felt like more of the same of, all right, man, they're doing a few good things. They got a couple 11-play drives, but they're still not getting into the red zone. They're settling for field goals, and they were shooting themselves in the foot. And I guess that's where it's a little too easy to say, oh, this moment is when they realized they could do it. But if I were going to write that story, when it was 2nd and 30 or whatever it was, and they hit that shot to Nico Collins, it did feel like it kind of broke things open, and maybe the Titans started to feel, okay, they're not just going to dink and dunk. We gotta really defend the entire field.
No, that was probably the turning moment for real. I believe it was it 2nd and 30 or 1st and 30.
It was second. I was 2nd 31 or something. It was yeah. It was
but
anything above 2nd 20 plus. It's kind of like when is it 99 degrees or 101 degrees out? I don't know. It's hot. It's hot. Yeah.
Agreed. But I think that gave the offense a boost. It gave CJ some confidence. But I thought CJ did a good job up until then, just taking what the defense gave him.
Yeah.
Like this, okay, you know what? You're going to give me this under route, I'll take the under route. If you're going to give me this over route, I'll take the over route. I think the frustrating part for me was a lot of the routes he was taking was underneath. So a lot of third downs, you were having to either punt or go forward or kick a field goal on 4th down. Now, they did do a really good job of 3 4th down conversions. Like that, I was impressed by that. I thought that was really, really good.
Well, and I thought, and that's where they got into 3rd and manageable. So, all right, if it doesn't convert, you're right there, and it's QB sneak away. I mean, watching the Chiefs last night, you just think about what the Chiefs have been the last couple of years, and the offense has not been the same offense, but when it comes to managing those situations, getting to 3rd and short, like they're really good at it. So that how do you play a whole football game and play winning football even if the numbers aren't there? I thought the Texans were doing a good job of that in the first half. And then also, you got to remember too, I mean, as far as the offense in total went, they had a touchdown in the first half if CJ had hit Dalton Schultz. So like that was on a nice drive, and CJ took full accountability for it. He just misfired on it. So that, in hindsight, again, it's easier, but like, all right, they're going against a bad defense, but they did have, very easily could have had 10 points in that first half, just running it the same way they did if CJ just hit that Dalton Schultz shot.
Yeah, I like the first half offense though, because you stuck with the run game.
Yeah,
you didn't get away from it. In Jacksonville, you got away from it way too soon. I think they had 15 total touches between Woody and Chubb, right?
Yeah, that was one of your points last week because you wanted to see him run it more. Yeah.
And they stuck with it, and that opened up things in the second half. I mean, it was late in the second half, but it opened up things in the second half. Plus, you're getting confidence in Woody. You're getting confidence in Nick. You're getting confidence in your offensive line, being able to move people, right? Like that end of the game type stuff, putting up 26 points, that's a really big deal going into the situation where I don't know if you have Lamar or not, but you got to put up points to win the game.
Yeah, the one clip from CJ that I think you'll like is him talking about the Jaden Higgins reception. For those of you who didn't see it, CJ hits Jaden Higgins, who was in man coverage. He was facing man coverage with no safety help over the top. CJ talked about how that play kind of got dialed up and how they executed it.
Yeah, they were in man. And on film they show like this man where they go help, the best player, the best receiver. So I felt 50 was about to go help Neek, and so I just signaled in a route concept that I thought would work. And so yeah, we executed it very well. They did a good job of executing the route plan, but I just seen something and I called it and it worked.
Yeah, so like that's everything we talked about all preseason, right? CJ recognizing the coverage, getting everybody into the right spots, and then on that play, Jaden Higgins was in the slot on the right side of the field, and Nico Collins was over on the left, and they were in single high. I haven't watched the all 22 yet, but you can tell by when Jaden Higgins catches the ball that the safety was probably shaded over towards Nico Collins on that, and it was you look at it and it's simple enough, but man, and it was the one target for Jaden Higgins, but the three touchdowns were Jaden Higgins and the two rookies, and Woody Marks with his two. There was the rookies.
It was the rookie show later in the second half.
Yeah.
But for CJ to be able to see that, dial it up, trust Jaden Higgins to get to the right spot, it looked like it was like a slot fade almost.
Yeah.
Great release by Jaden Higgins too. He was quick, he was fast, he beat him right off the line of scrimmage and blew right by him. But I want to see more. Like it makes me excited. I want to see more from Higgins. Like let him get some more targets, some more playing time. I'm not sure how many snaps he played yesterday, but when guys are making plays, like Woody to me has really earned it from week 1 till now. He's earned his right to win the majority of the touches yesterday when it comes to anybody outside of Nico, right?
Yeah.
So we want to see the same thing from the other rookies if they're able. Like, okay, let's get Higgins going. Let's build some confidence with him because the more targets that CJ has, the better the offense could be.
The pass protection by and large was pretty good. It's just that nobody can wipe that image of CJ getting sacked. And I can't remember. I think it was. I can't remember how many seconds it was, but supposedly it's the fastest sack in the last 2 years, according to Next Gen Stats. And I don't honestly know how there could have been a faster sack than that one, because unless maybe that's when they started keeping track of it 2 years ago. I went back and watched the Jeffrey Simmons sack, and I had a pretty good idea of a couple of the things that might have gone wrong when I watched it on television. I watched it from the end zone, and Cecil, so Jeffrey Simmons, the scariest defensive player they have, is a left defensive tackle. And on the right side, you have number 97, the right defensive tackle. 4 guys, the center, the left guard, the left tackle, and the tight end to the left, all end up blocking number 97. And I don't know if the left guard, Laken Tomlinson, was supposed to pull and come around, but it looked like the right guard and the right tackle were both Ed Ingram and Titus Howard were going in opposite directions. It was mass confusion there. And CJ had checked to some things beforehand. So at home, that's a one thing that I get a little bit nervous about going on the road again up to a place like Baltimore is, man, there's still hints of just bad communications at times and them just not being on the same page.
Yeah, that play was probably the fastest sack I've ever seen in my life, maybe.
Yeah, it's a dream. It
was unbelievable.
Cecil, you know what I would have done if I were Jeffrey Simmons? There's not a chance in hell that I would have made it to CJ, because I would have thought for sure it was a trap or something. I would have, as soon as I was like in the hole free, I would have like looked to my right, looked to my left. I would have just thought somebody was trapping me. Yeah, because I did that once versus the Baltimore Ravens, and Tony Banks was the quarterback. I beat my guy clean, and I'm not a pass rusher. I beat him so clean. And I thought this has got to be a screen. And I kind of settled in, and meanwhile, Tony Banks is standing right in front of me, like 5 yards away from me. And I'm looking, I start running, and then I turn back and I run back towards Tony Banks, and he completed the pass. Coughlin was not happy about that at all. That wasn't a fun Tom Coughlin, Seth Payne moment on the sideline. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, not again, I haven't watched the all 22 yet. And you're right. That's a noticeable thing going into Baltimore and moving forward. But I think I saw less of that
Oh
yesterday,
yeah,
previous weeks. You know what I mean? So I think
no,
that's a positive moving forward. Like, okay, now we're starting to see things kind of a little bit, I wouldn't say come together, things moving forward in the right direction.
yeah, and I think one of the things that really bothered me last week was their execution in the screen game. The Jaguars, for one, it looked like the Jaguars, who are probably a smarter defense than the Titans, had really sniffed out the screens beforehand. I mean, they had guys. There were some defensive ends that weren't dropping off into coverage, but just flat out weren't rushing right from the start. Like there's one in the Jacksonville game. So this is what I wonder too: is if Kaylee realized and recognized that they had built up some tendencies over the first three games, because they had some pretty extreme tendencies of when a fullback was in a game, when CJ was under center, and that happens in the first few games. And you don't want to read too much into it, but I wonder if with the screen game, Callie on that screen to Woody Marks to the right, they faked it like it was going to be screened to the offense's left. Jeffrey Simmons, really smart football player, reads
Mhm.
it at screen, but he starts running to his right towards the fake, and it really opened up everything. And I guess Woody Mark said in the post game that was one of those plays that they practiced it all week, and the last time they practiced it, they botched it completely. So when you dial it up in the game, you're kind of like, all right, here we go, and it
Hey,
worked.
that's interesting because a lot of the times I've been around coordinators that like on a Thursday practice, if you mess up or a Friday practice, if you mess up that play, they're getting rid of it.
Yeah,
That's out. We're not calling that no more. So
yeah.
that's interesting that he still had confidence to call the play and it worked even after the last one being botched.
That's a funny thing about Belichick's book because you know how coaches are just all full of contradictions and everything. And he spends a whole chapter talking about how you play the way you practice. If you're not practicing well, you're not going to run it in the game. And then in the very next chapter, he tells a story about some play that they just couldn't get right in practice. And then they had a. But here's the key. I think it was a Randy Moss play. I think that's the one thing. Like Randy Moss is like a woman that tests your, tests your, tests your ability to your self control and everything. You're like, I would never sacrifice everything for a woman, but maybe her for Randy Moss. Could think about it.
Let me ask you this. Was there, I mean, obviously shut out for the defense. Was there anything that stood out to you on the defensive side of the
I
football?
think, well, for one, and I don't know if you knew this or not, because it was kind of Jonathan Alexander reported this after the game, but didn't really write a whole lot about it. D'Amico gave Matt Burke, the defensive coordinator, play calling
Yeah.
duties for the first time. So I didn't notice a big change in the play calling or anything. I will play this, and mind you, this is a few days after the Texans released CJ Gardner Johnson, amidst a bunch of stories of him blowing coverages and not taking responsibilities for it. So this is D'Amico talking about limiting the big plays yesterday.
No, it's just guys just being in the right spot, right? No grenades. I call no grenades going off in the back. Nobody's running free. Everybody was disciplined. They were where they're supposed to be. Yeah, they're gonna make some plays. Good team. And Cam, he got out, threw the ball back across the field like we knew he could do. He made a nice play, but guys, they stayed with it. We kept pressing. Our D-line did a great job. We did a really good job in the run game, right? And then our D-line really caused havoc in the passing game. The guys covered really well today.
Yeah. So I mean, you can take the grenade metaphor a lot of different ways.
Yes.
I like to think, when he's talking about a grenade, just something out there rolling around like a wide open receiver or something. I kind of always look at it in that context as, Kamari Lassiter is the one that has to jump on the grenade. When CJ Gardner Johnson jumps a route and all of a sudden Kamari has to make up for it, he's got to jump on that grenade and sacrifice himself because you don't end up in good coverage like last week versus Brian Thomas Jr. and first week versus the Rams. The other way I've heard grenade used is just like the type of linebacker who's just a hand grenade in the backfield, like a guy that like Roquan Smith or somebody that can just come up and just blast everything. But yeah, CJ Gardner Johnson, I think he let a lot of grenades roll past him. And yesterday, and you had pointed out it earlier, D'Amico just pointed it out right there. I mean, there's going to be times where a guy like Cam Ward is just going to extend the play and he's going to complete it, but it didn't go for a touchdown. It didn't, like, they still had their bases covered and they had guys in position.
It was good to see. And it's only one game, but you notice none of the big plays. And it's a Tennessee Titans; they're not the greatest team, right?
Yeah.
But still, you notice it wasn't that many big plays or guys left wide open or guys in the secondary like, hey, what's going on? They were in the spots they're supposed to be in, and that's what you want. And I think if CD was the guy that made those mistakes, great. Now you can move forward being confident. You at least will have a guys in the right spot. They may make the play still, but they'll be in the right spot to make the tackle.
Yeah. The other notable thing that happened on defense was EJ Speed got some more playing time. I think they're still, I think, having a rolling tryout for everybody who isn't Aziz Al-Shaair right now. And EJ Speed might have taken a step forward in that. And, as he gets comfortable with the scheme, and he's just got that certain veteran savvy and an athleticism and an ability to hit. And I think really right now, the tackling. I mean, there's still a few plays yesterday where I'm like, oh my gosh, the tackling. It hasn't been nearly as bad the last couple of weeks. But they're putting heavier people on the field to stop the run when they see fit. I think they're doing a really good job of understanding that, okay, we can't treat Jalen Petrie like he's a linebacker when it's a heavy run situation. We can't treat him like he's an actual cornerback when we need somebody to cover somebody in the slot with no safety help over the top. So I think between D'Amico and Matt Burke, they're starting to figure out exactly how they want to use their personnel. So that's good to see. The other big thing defensively, if we roll on to, so the Texans cover the spread. It was on FanDuel. I think it was still at 7.5 before the game. It wasn't, whatever the point when it was relevant to me, it was at 7.5. So the Texans cover the spread, obviously, on that one. They go in to face the Ravens this week. And the Ravens, by the end of last night's game, they were down 7 starters on defense. They entered the game with down 4 starters on defense. They're down 7 starters by the end of the game. They're banged up on the offensive side of the ball. Lamar Jackson has a hamstring issue, and people just flat out don't know whether he's going to play or not. FanDuel 2 hours ago, right before the show, I checked it, and the Texans were a 6.5 point underdog. Now they're a 4.5 point underdog. So I obviously, if the 2-time MVP quarterback is out of the game and Cooper Rush is your quarterback, that's going to make a difference. And there's something about that Ravens logo and playing against that Ravens team in Baltimore that there's not a single bit of me that feels like, oh yeah, no Lamar Jackson, no problem.
I agree with you, but I think if you're going to jump on them, this is the time to do it because your defense is playing lights out. I think they're averaging less than 13 points a game or under 14 points a game. They're giving up. They were 0-3. No, where I seen this statistic, it might have been you.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Only undefeated team that didn't let more than, or they were only undefeated team. You say it.
Here it is. Here it is. The Texans are the first team since the 1974 Cowboys to have a losing record through the first 4 games of a season, despite allowing fewer than 13 points per game via NFL research. Yeah,
that gives me confidence, especially against Cooper Rush. That gives me confidence.
Yeah.
Especially against the Cooper Rush. Now, of course, against Lamar Jackson, there'll be some plays being made. They're averaging tons of points on offense. I think every week, besides this past week against Kansas City, they were putting up points.
They were the number 1 scoring offense in the league, yeah.
But now, to me, the defense was terrible. They've been giving up some of the most points in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, each and every week. So I'm excited to see what they can do. So the Ravens putting up tons of points each and every week. I get that, but till they played the Kansas City Chiefs last week, but I trust the defense. I think the Texans defense can compete with anybody, period. I have no issue with that. It's the offense. Can they duplicate what they did in the fourth quarter last week, again this week versus injured, still high-powered, or I should say a lot of big names on that defense, right?
Yeah.
It's not playing up to their potential right now.
Yeah, and they're just some of those 7 players will come back. Matabike, the defensive tackle, he's on injured reserve, so he's not going to be back. Kyle Van Noy's been out. Roquan Smith got injured in this game, but the Ravens are now before the Monday night game. They have the worst scoring defense in the league. The Texans have the best scoring defense in the league. And it's a little bit ironic because you're going up against a Ravens team that back in the year 2000, they won a Super Bowl with it. They had a defense that gave up 10 points per game on the season, which is just absurd back in 2000. I mean, look, the Texans offense, the way they played in the first 3 games, the Texans would have to be that type of defense to really carry them. There's signs of hope now. So I feel good about that. The one wrinkle that's interesting, especially if Lamar Jackson's hamstring, if he plays and his hamstring's bothering him at all, and people by the time they're listening to this might have clarity on that. He's got the highest sack rate in the league when blitzed. So selectively
Lamar does.
dialing up the blitzes might be really interesting, especially if Lamar Jackson's hamstring is injured.
And that's uncharacteristic of what they do with the Texans defense. So that would actually be an awesome thing to see.
Yeah.
I'm still scared of Lamar Jackson.
I know. He's never lost to the Texans. I mean, there's just that's the flat out fact of the matter. The Texans, it's one of the reasons they don't need to blitz is obviously because the pass rush is so good. And Danielle Hunter, you asked what jumped out at me about the defense. Man, he had a stretch of plays. I think they were back-to-back plays where he sniffed out that throwback to Cam Ward. They had thrown it out to the sideline or run out to the right, and they were going to throw it back to Cam Ward. Danielle Hunter just recognized it and sat there standing in front of Cam Ward, so they had to bail on the play. And then I think he got a sack on the next play where tight end chipped him. Danielle goes down inside between the guard and the tackle and just plants the left guard. I believe that's Skoranek on his butt and then gets the sack. Like, he gained 5 pounds of muscle in the offseason. And I was kind of surprised because he doesn't where's the guy like that?
Need.
Yeah. Well, he said, I interviewed him and he told me that he just felt like he was a little too finesse last year. And I'm watching that play right there, and like, man, that is the opposite of finesse. He just bulldozed his way in. He had 6 different hands touch him on the way to the quarterback. So like, he and Will, and especially those guys versus the Ravens run game, especially if Lamar Jackson, let's say hypothetically Lamar Jackson is healthy. One of the things that really hurt the Texans last year was just that bind that you get put in on those zone reads on Lamar Jackson as a runner, like trying to hem up everything with Derrick Henry, but worry about Lamar Jackson at the same time. They got caught in a bind. And I think they've had a whole offseason to think about that. And I think dial in their reads, because so much of that is a defensive end. I get so stressed watching option football. Back in my day, we used to see the veer option from under center. And that was stressful enough. And to figure out if Cordell Stewart was going to keep it or pitch it, and as he's running at you with his 4.3 speed. So it's stressful, but a lot of it is just muscle memory. And I think knowing the way Will prepared this offseason and knowing that he was going to face the Ravens again, I think they'll probably be dialed in better on that. But you and I are of like mind. It's the Ravens. I typically say don't look at the logo. You're playing the players, not the logo. But man, it's too many times. Too many times I've felt like, they got a good shot, and I'm not gonna mess with it. The other transaction that came out this morning, Texans traded Cam Robinson to the Browns for just a pick swap. So they end up eating the signing bonus that they gave him. It was, I want to say $11 million, but don't want anybody hold that to me. They'll get like $3 million of cap relief, give or take. But that's a rough offseason so far when you consider that they guaranteed a good, a sizable chunk of CJ Gardner-Johnson's contract, and they gave Cam Robinson a double-digit signing bonus, and he's gone. Just never touched the field in the regular season.
It's a bad look.
Yeah,
it's a bad look, and I think that's you're missed on 2 big ones. And there's other offensive linemen you could have brought in, other guys you could have went after. But for CD, I keep calling him CD. What's his name?
Yeah, I don't know why they call him CD. It's probably something basic. I haven't thought about it, but CJ Gardner-Johnson.
CJ Gardner-Johnson, and then Cam Robinson. And I was kind of confused on Cam Robinson because I'm like, he was traded from Jacksonville mid-year last year.
Yeah.
He did decent with the Vikings, but he wasn't like anything crazy. He's older, and then you give him that much money to come there, and then he never, you know what I mean? So that's just not a good look. Hopefully the guys they have in the building can get things going and kind of go from here. But to trade him to Browns need some help so bad as far as tackle help. So they found a needy team, so maybe you can get some good picks from there. But it's just not a good look so far for the offseason.
So the over-under this week for the Texans versus the Ravens, 43.5. We'll have more on that on Wednesday. I'm soaking this win in. I'm not listening to there's people that are angry at me for being happy about this win because it was just the Titans. I quote the great Bill O'Brien. It's hard to win in this league, damn it.
There it is. There it is.
Nothing gets you more popular than quoting Bill O'Brien. Cecil, thank you, and thanks to FanDuel. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review and some kind words. Everybody have a great day.